Hi, this is Ray Davis, author of Anunnaki Awakening. Today we're going to answer the question, who are the Anunnaki? Let's begin with the basics that everyone agrees on. The Anunnaki were the ancient gods of the Sumerians. For thousands of years, they were unknown to Western secular scholars or theologians. Beginning in the late 19th century, archaeologists began to uncover evidence of the Anunnaki in ancient Iraq. In the decades that followed, various translations began to emerge from these ancient texts. As scholars began to pore over the information, they began to see similarities between the ancient Sumerian stories and the stories in the book of Genesis. At that time, influenced by the Judeo-Christian tradition, scholars generally thought Genesis was the oldest version of the stories depicted in Genesis prior to the emergence of Abram. However, it soon became clear that these ancient Sumerian stories were even older than the book of Genesis, and that many of the stories in Genesis before Abram seemed to come, in one form or another, directly from the stories in the Sumerian texts. In 1976, author and researcher Zecharia Sitchin released his landmark book, The 12th Planet. He claimed that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials that came to the Earth, created human beings, and then ruled over human beings. Whereas mainline scholars tend to interpret the word Anunnaki as the children of Anu, Sitchin said that translation was incorrect. He said that the translation should be, those who from heaven to earth came. He advocated for what became known as intervention theory, the idea that these extraterrestrial beings had mixed their DNA with the beings that existed on Earth when they arrived, and created modern humans. This, of course, got him into trouble with both Darwinists and creationists alike, each of whom have their own agendas and ideas about how human beings came into existence. And yet, as Sitchin pointed out, even in the book of Genesis there is a reference to the sons of heaven mating with the daughters of men. Now, Western theologians, who again for 2 millennia were completely unaware of the Anunnaki, began looking for ways to fit the Anunnaki into their Genesis narrative. Picking up on this idea that they had mated with the daughters of men, they believed the Anunnaki were either the fallen angels described in Genesis or perhaps their offspring, the Nephilim. In their view, these gods were supernatural beings in rebellion against the one true God of the universe. Meanwhile, Darwinists dismissed the Anunnaki as mere myth, like all other myths and cultures around the world. They see it as an unscientific attempt to understand the world around them by our ancestors, who created gods to represent the forces of nature and the universe. Sitchin's vision transformed the way millions of people around the world view these texts. First, he took the Sumerians as eyewitnesses to the history they described in their texts. Secondly, he took a space-age view of the texts and reinterpreted them according to how we might view them based on what we know about space travel today. Later, his critics attacked him for the inaccuracy or incompleteness of his translations, but they completely missed the point. The Anunnaki are just one of many, many stories around the world, where human cultures say that they got their civilization and their very existence from beings that came from the sky. Regardless of whether Sitchin was an expert translator or not, 3 things are clear regardless of who translates the text. The Sumerians say that the Anunnaki created them. The Sumerians say that the Anunnaki lived among them. And the Sumerians say that the Anunnaki ruled over them. Who were the Anunnaki? Only you can decide that for yourself. Whether you go along with more traditional interpretations of the text, or those advocated by writers like Zecharia Sitchin, clearly, this is an area that all modern humans have an interest in understanding better, as it may play a role in where we've been, who we are, and where we're going.